Imagine being able to predict whether a couple will stay together or break apart. Not by reading their texts, not by watching years of their life, but simply by observing how they talk for 5 minutes. It sounds impossible, but that's exactly what Dr. John Gottman, the world's leading relationship scientist, has done. Through decades of research and what he famously calls the Seattle Love Lab, he's discovered that marriage isn't built on candlelight dinners or poetic words. It's built on small daily moments of respect, affection, and connection. In this expanded breakdown, we'll go deep into Gottman's 7 principles, the science of lasting love. Each principle offers a powerful insight into what keeps relationships alive through life's chaos and calm. From the hidden reasons behind constant arguments to the secret language of lasting affection, this summary gives you the emotional blueprint to create not just a marriage that survives, but one that thrives. Chapter 1. Inside the Seattle Love Lab. The truth about happy marriages. The Seattle Love Lab is a place that looks ordinary. A comfortable apartment overlooking the water, a kitchen, a living room, a few couches. But behind the scenes, cameras and sensors quietly record heart rates, tone of voice, facial expressions, and body language. Over 3,000 couples walked through those doors, and what Gottman learned from them changed how the world understands love. He discovered that the difference between happy and unhappy couples doesn't lie in how often they argue, but in how they argue and reconnect afterward. Happy couples fight, of course, but they repair and recover quickly. They listen, they show humor, they stay kind even when they're frustrated. They view their marriage not as a test of perfection, but as a partnership where both can safely express emotions. Gottman's findings were staggering. By analyzing these interactions, he could predict with 91% accuracy which couples would divorce. The most successful relationships weren't the ones filled with grand gestures or endless romance. They were the ones where partners treated each other with respect during the smallest moments. The breakfast conversations, the jokes, the listening, the shared glances. He also discovered that love affects physical health. People in happy marriages have lower blood pressure, stronger immune systems, and live longer lives. Love, he realized, is a powerful biological force. Emotional connection doesn't just heal the heart, it literally strengthens it. Chapter 2. How I Predict Divorce. In his studies, Gottman uncovered a chilling pattern among struggling couples. Their arguments followed the same destructive script again and again. He named the 4 recurring behaviors the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the ultimate predictors of relationship breakdown. 1. Criticism. It's okay to complain about a behavior, but when you start attacking your partner's personality, you're so selfish, you never think of me, you plant the seed of resentment. Criticism focuses on character, not actions, and it pushes love away. 2. Contempt, the deadliest of all the horsemen. Contempt is sneering, sarcasm, eye-rolling, or mocking. It's treating your partner with disgust instead of respect. Gottman found that contempt is the single greatest predictor of divorce because it kills admiration, the foundation of love. 3. Defensiveness. When attacked, it's natural to want to protect yourself. But defensiveness, turning the blame around, making excuses, prevents resolution. It says, the problem isn't me, and stops any real understanding. 4. Stonewalling. This happens when one partner shuts down completely. They stop responding, stop making eye contact, stop engaging. Gottman found this most often in men, whose heart rates often spike above 100 beats per minute during conflict. Emotionally flooded, they withdraw to protect themselves, but the silence leaves their partner feeling abandoned. Avoiding the 4 horsemen isn't just about stopping bad habits. It's about consciously replacing them with empathy, curiosity, and calm. Criticism becomes a gentle request. Contempt turns into appreciation. Defensiveness becomes acceptance of partial responsibility. And stonewalling transforms into self-soothing and returning with openness. Principle 1. Enhance your love maps. Every lasting relationship begins with understanding, not surface-level familiarity, but deep emotional knowledge. Gottman's concept of love maps refers to how well you know your partner's inner world, their dreams, fears, goals, memories, triggers, and ongoing life experiences. The more detailed and accurate your map, the more resilient your relationship becomes. Imagine your partner's mind as a landscape filled with mountains of ambition, rivers of past memories, and valleys of vulnerability. When you truly know this terrain, you navigate emotional storms with confidence. You recognize when your partner is stressed, when they need support, and when to celebrate their wins. Over time, people change. New jobs, losses, shifting priorities, or even small daily stresses can alter who we are. This means love maps must be continually updated, not once a year during an anniversary talk, but through regular, curious conversations. Gottman suggests setting aside time each week to ask meaningful questions. What's been on your mind lately? What are you looking forward to this month? What's worrying you right now? Strong love maps also protect relationships during conflict. When you know what truly matters to your partner, their values, sensitivities, and aspirations, you approach disagreements with empathy instead of defensiveness. For example, if you know your spouse values being appreciated, you'll argue less about chores because you understand the deeper need to feel seen and valued. Creating and maintaining love maps doesn't require grand gestures. It's about daily curiosity, listening deeply, remembering small details, and following up on them later tells your partner, "You matter. I care enough to keep learning you." That message builds emotional trust, which is the true heartbeat of any lasting relationship. Principle 2. Nurture your fondness and admiration. Fondness and admiration are not luxuries. They're the emotional fuel that keeps love alive through the years. Gottman calls them the antidotes to contempt, the most destructive of the four horsemen. When you cultivate admiration, you protect your relationship from emotional corrosion. Many relationships start with an abundance of admiration, the spark of early romance, the thrill of attraction. But over time, daily stress, responsibility, and routine can dull those feelings. Without conscious effort, partners begin to focus on what annoys them rather than what they appreciate. That's why Gottman emphasizes that admiration must be practiced like gratitude, deliberately, regularly, and sincerely. He recommends simple rituals to reignite affection. Keep a gratitude journal about your partner. Recall the story of how you first met, or share daily appreciations aloud. Even one small compliment, "You handled that so well, I love your laugh, I appreciate how patient you were with me," can shift emotional energy. These affirmations remind both partners of their shared history and the reasons they fell in love. Fondness and admiration also act as emotional shock absorbers during conflict. When a couple has a deep reservoir of positive feelings, a small fight doesn't shake the foundation. It's like having a sturdy bridge that can withstand the weight of disagreement. You might still argue, but beneath the frustration lies an enduring respect. True admiration isn't blind idealization. It's about seeing your partner clearly, flaws and all, and choosing to value their best qualities anyway. When you consciously nurture admiration, you build not just love, but loyalty and forgiveness. It's the quiet reminder that even when you disagree, you're still on the same team. Principle 3. Turn toward each other instead of away. Every relationship is built on thousands of tiny moments, what Gottman calls bids for connection. A bid can be as simple as a smile, a question, a sigh, or a small comment like, "Look at that sunset." These are subtle requests for attention, affection, or emotional presence. How you respond to these bids determines the overall emotional climate of your relationship. There are 3 ways to respond to a bid: turn toward, turn away, or turn against. Turning toward means engaging with warmth or interest. Turning away means ignoring or dismissing. Turning against means responding with irritation or hostility. Over time, these micro-responses accumulate. They create either a strong emotional bank account or an empty one. Gottman's research found that couples in thriving marriages turn toward each other about 86% of the time. They respond to each other's small moments with curiosity and kindness. Unhappy couples, on the other hand, do so only 33% of the time, leading to emotional bankruptcy. Turning toward doesn't mean constant availability. It's about emotional responsiveness, showing that your partner's presence matters. When they share a random thought, respond with genuine attention. When they reach out for comfort, offer it without distraction. These moments are the building blocks of trust and intimacy. A marriage built on turning toward feels emotionally safe. Partners know that even in busy or stressful times, they can rely on each other for connection. Over years, this creates a stable friendship, and friendship, Gottman reminds us, is the foundation of romantic love. So, the next time your partner makes a small bid, a question, a joke, a sigh, pause, look up, and respond. That simple choice, repeated hundreds of times, is what makes love last. Principle 4. Let your partner influence you. Many people believe strength in relationships comes from dominance, from standing your ground and not backing down. Gottman's research, however, paints a very different picture. The strongest relationships are those built on mutual influence, where both partners respect and consider each other's opinions, desires, and boundaries. His findings were striking. Marriages where husbands refused to accept influence from their wives were 81% more likely to end divorce. This isn't about gender. It's about the willingness to share power. When one person insists on controlling decisions, communication collapses, resentment grows, and emotional intimacy fades. Letting your partner influence you doesn't mean losing your individuality. It means recognizing that your partner's feelings and perspectives are just as valid as your own. When a couple can listen and compromise, they build a sense of equality and teamwork. Decisions stop feeling like battles and start feeling like collaborations. For example, if one partner wants to spend the weekend relaxing while the other wants to visit friends, mutual influence means discussing each perspective and finding a balance. Maybe a relaxed morning followed by an afternoon outing. It's not about winning. It's about finding harmony. Gottman calls this process accepting influence. It's a marker of emotional intelligence, the ability to stay open even when you disagree. When partners accept influence, they communicate, "Your opinion matters to me." That simple message builds profound respect. Refusing to accept influence, however, signals contempt and rigidity. It creates a power imbalance that slowly suffocates emotional connection. Over time, one partner feels unheard, the other feels burdened, and resentment takes root. In healthy relationships, influence flows in both directions. Each person has a voice, and decisions become opportunities to strengthen the bond rather than weaken it. The greatest relationships are not about control, but about cooperation, a shared dance where both partners lead and follow in turn, gracefully and with trust. Chapter 3. The two kinds of marital conflict. Conflict isn't a sign of a broken marriage. It's a sign of two people being real. Gottman discovered that all marital conflicts fall into two broad categories. 1. Solvable problems. These are issues like chores, finances, or daily logistics, the kinds of problems that can be resolved through clear communication and compromise. 2. Perpetual problems. These are deeper conflicts rooted in personality, lifestyle, or values. They often repeat because they're tied to who each person fundamentally is. Surprisingly, about 69% of conflicts are perpetual. But happy couples don't see that as a failure. They learn to live with their differences rather than trying to erase them. They laugh about them, talk about them calmly, and show affection even when they disagree. In other words, they choose connection over control. Principle 5. Solve your solvable problems. Every relationship, no matter how strong, faces challenges. The difference between happy couples and unhappy ones isn't the absence of problems. It's how they handle them. Gottman calls this skill solving solvable problems, and it's one of the most practical and transformative principles. The first step is recognizing that not all conflicts are created equal. Some disagreements stem from deeper values or personality differences. These are perpetual problems that may never disappear completely. But solvable problems, the ones about daily logistics, chores, or schedules, can be handled effectively with emotional intelligence, respect, and communication. Gottman outlines 5 key steps to manage solvable issues gracefully. 1. Soften your startup. The way a conversation begins determines how it will end. Starting harshly, with criticism or blame, almost always guarantees a defensive response. Instead, begin gently. Use I statements rather than you accusations. For example, instead of saying, "You never help around the house," try, "I feel overwhelmed when the house is messy. Can we clean together later?" A gentle opening sets the stage for teamwork, not battle. 2. Learn to make and receive repair attempts. During arguments, healthy couples use small gestures or phrases to de-escalate tension. A touch on the arm, a smile, a joke, or even a simple, "Let's start over." These are repair attempts. They're like emotional lifelines tossed into rough waters. But for them to work, both partners must recognize and accept these gestures. The ability to repair and recover quickly is a hallmark of emotional maturity. 3. Soothe yourself and each other. When emotions run high, physiology kicks in, heart rate spikes, adrenaline surges, and rational thinking disappears. Gottman calls this flooding. When you're flooded, stop the conversation and take a break. Breathe, walk, or listen to music until you're calm enough to talk productively. The goal isn't to avoid tension, but to manage it before it spirals out of control. 4. Compromise. Compromise doesn't mean giving up what matters most. It means identifying your core needs and being flexible about the rest. Gottman suggests visualizing 2 circles, your circle of needs and your partner's. The overlap, the shared space, is where compromise happens. Couples who master this skill think like a team, asking, "What's fair for both of us?" instead of "How can I win?" 5. Be tolerant of each other's faults. Every partner comes with quirks, habits, and imperfections. Happy couples learn to accept them with humor and grace. You can't build a life together by constantly trying to change each other. Instead, accept that imperfection is part of love. When you treat your partner's flaws with gentleness, you create a safe, forgiving atmosphere. The ultimate goal isn't to win an argument. It's to solve the problem and preserve the connection. Successful couples walk away from conflict not with a sense of victory, but with the feeling that they were heard and understood. That emotional safety makes all the difference. Chapter 4. Coping with typical solvable problems. Money, chores, sex, in-laws. These are universal relationship triggers. Gottman shows that the difference between couples who handle them well and those who don't lies in emotional tone, not topic. The happiest couples talk about difficult issues with humor, affection, and teamwork. They don't weaponize mistakes. For example, when one partner feels unseen, instead of saying, "You never notice me," they might say, "I've been missing our time together lately." It's softer, more honest, and opens the door for reconnection. The essence is simple. Problems aren't the enemy. Disconnection is. Principle 6. Overcome gridlock. Some conflicts don't go away, no matter how many discussions, apologies, or compromises are made. These are what Gottman calls gridlock problems. Gridlock happens when a disagreement touches something deeper, a personal dream, a value, or a part of your identity. For example, one partner may want children while the other doesn't. One may crave adventure while the other values stability. These aren't just logistical issues. They represent who we are at our core. The mistake most couples make is trying to win these conflicts instead of understanding them. They get stuck in the same arguments for years because they focus on positions, not emotions. Gottman's research shows that the way to move past gridlock isn't through persuasion, but through empathy and curiosity. Here's how to break free from emotional gridlock. 1. Identify the dream behind the conflict. Ask open-ended questions to uncover the deeper meaning behind your partner's stance. Why is this important to you? What does this represent for you? You might discover that your partner's desire to move to a new city isn't just about location. It's about freedom, growth, or self-fulfillment. 2. Acknowledge and validate each other's dreams. You don't have to agree with your partner's dream, but you must respect it. Validation doesn't mean approval. It means showing that you understand. Saying, "I see why this matters to you," helps your partner feel emotionally safe. 3. Soothe the emotional pain. Gridlock often brings frustration, sadness, or even hopelessness. Show compassion. Small gestures of affection, a hug, holding hands, a calm tone, can remind your partner that you're on the same team, even when your dreams diverge. 4. Find temporary compromise. You might not solve the issue immediately, but you can find partial solutions that honor both partners' needs. For example, if one partner wants to move abroad and the other fears losing stability, maybe they agree to a trial period or more travel before deciding. The purpose of these steps isn't to erase differences, but to make them livable. When both partners feel heard and respected, gridlock loses its power. The issue may still exist, but it stops defining the relationship. Couples who navigate gridlock successfully create emotional depth. They recognize that love isn't about complete agreement. It's about standing beside each other, even in disagreement. By seeing your partner's dream as part of what makes them unique, you replace resistance with reverence. Principle 7. Create shared meaning. Beyond problem-solving and conflict management lies the ultimate goal of any long-term relationship: creating a shared sense of meaning. Gottman defines this as the emotional and spiritual connection that gives life together a sense of purpose. When couples share meaning, they feel like they're writing the same story, one that's bigger than chores, bills, or to-do lists. Shared meaning is built through rituals, values, goals, and symbols that give your relationship identity. These can be as simple as a weekly date night, a morning coffee ritual, or shared holiday traditions. It could also be something deeper, a shared mission to raise kind children, support a cause, or build a certain kind of home environment. Couples who create shared meaning don't just live together, they grow together. They regularly discuss questions like, what do we want our future to look like? What kind of family culture do we want to create? How do we want to give back to the world? When both partners contribute to a common vision, they move through life as collaborators instead of cohabitants. Even in difficult times, this shared sense of purpose provides emotional strength. It turns obstacles into shared challenges instead of sources of division. Gottman also emphasizes the power of rituals of connection, small but meaningful actions that reinforce closeness. A good night kiss, an evening walk, or a family meal become symbolic of your unity. These rituals create continuity and predictability, emotional anchors in an unpredictable world. Ultimately, shared meaning transforms marriage from a partnership of convenience into a partnership of purpose. It's about writing a story that reflects who you are together, not just as individuals, but as a team. When love evolves into shared vision, you don't just live side by side. You live as one narrative, one mission, one shared legacy. Dr. John Gottman's decades of research prove one timeless truth. Lasting love isn't built on grand declarations. It's built on daily acts of friendship, empathy, and respect. The 7 principles remind us that relationships don't succeed by luck. They succeed because two people continually choose to understand each other, to listen, to forgive, and to keep turning toward one another even when it's difficult. If love is a garden, these principles are the daily watering, small, steady acts that make it bloom. So the next time your partner reaches out with a question, a smile, or a quiet sigh, look up, meet their eyes, and respond. Because in that moment, you're not just maintaining your relationship, you're strengthening the invisible thread that holds your shared life together, one gentle connection at a time.